business, right? So we're talking about, for example, a company that washes cars, right? That person doesn't really sell anything besides the water that's being used and the service of actually cleaning. So the taxman may not be able to easily determine how many cars were washed based on the water that was used in that car wash. So that person may think that he's making 100,000 a year from his, for example, 4 car wash. Stores there. And he could as well fool the taxman to make him think that he is only making 70,000 and he's going to pay his taxes on 70,000 or just below that tax threshold, whatever it is in his country. So maybe on $50,000 per year, that person would be paying 30% tax. However, on 100,000, he would be paying 65% tax. Or, for example, he would be paying 50% on 100,000 income, and he would be paying 25% on 70,000 income. So you kind of takes a look at the threshold there and decides that he wants to make $65,000 on paper. Let's call it like that. He lies, he makes it on paper, and kind of informs the tax agency in his nation that he made $65,000, and so the threshold that says where you pay 25% tax on up to 70 is kind of the golden spot for him, and the rest money, the rest 35,000 in cash, is somehow being transferred into that anonymous Bitcoin cryptocurrency. So maybe he just meets people that exchange that coin for cash, or he somehow transfers that money through a friend, for example, or another kind of ghost company or ninja company or proxy company, you know, using maybe a tax haven, which is obviously bad because then there's a trail, and that trail can certainly be kind of detected, and obviously the more anonymous you are in the financial world, the more risk you end up taking, so that money can be just stolen by a bunch of people in a tax haven, and you would have no way to get it back because they would just kill you if you go there, and your financial institutions and law enforcement would have no power over a bunch of islands somewhere out there in the world that have tax havens for themselves. So obviously there certainly could be a lot of stress if you would just kind of end up being a victim of theft in the tax haven, because they would probably know that you are trying to hide the money from the taxes, so they as well know that you are a criminal too, so they may wish to harm you and not be afraid about it because you deserve that, right? Everybody has to pay the taxes and make sure that the country they live in prospers. And let's assume that that person somehow anonymously manages to get his $35,000 that he does not want to report as income into that anonymous currency, and he keeps it there. That cryptocurrency is certainly safe, legit, and solely focused on anonymity. and you are a lot richer because you didn't have to pay tax on that $35,000, which you can then use to pay for things like, for example, holidays. And you may think, oh wow, holidays are not such a big deal, but if you think about it, there are certainly many expensive things in the world. Things that you, for example, would like to try once, and things that cost a lot of money but are so rare that experiencing that thing for a lot of money is certainly worth it. So you may go on holiday and stay in hotels that cost $1,000 per night. In those hotels you would be serviced with the finest luxury. You would be eating the finest food at the finest restaurants that cost hundreds and even thousands of dollars per meal, and you could finally end up being renting cars that cost millions of dollars, so you could experience what it's like to sit in that in that car that costs millions of dollars. You could go and rent yourself a private jet somehow, maybe using a friend's name. You're probably not going to be alone, so you want to hide yourself from the tax man as much as possible, not get your name on bills somewhere, but you get it what I mean, right? And you could have a friend that you can spend this money with, or friends, and experience something together, to travel to places and enjoy that luxury that you would otherwise not be able to do, because you have to invest in the business, you have to buy another car wash company to expand your business, so that you could eventually achieve the life that you would achieve without paying your taxes. And obviously over like 5 or 10 years or 20 years in particular, that certainly adds up. So if you wouldn't be paying $35,000 tax for 10 years, that's like what, $350,000 spent on luxury, on travel, on experience, on money related kind of attractions and things that would, for example, cost you like a couple of $1,000s, and it's like a one-off experience, and you would just kind of feel that you're living, that it was worth it, but it was worth it for as long as I have the money that is like good enough to lose. So you know how they say, don't ever invest the money you can't afford to lose. Never never kind of risk the money you can't afford to lose. So there are, I am sure, things in life that are so expensive but so awesome that somebody would tell you that you should only spend like $3,000 or $10,000 for a night or 2 nights in a specific hotel room out there that's like super luxurious, only if you have enough if that money that you spend is just good enough to throw away, right? Because it's only 24 hours, right? It's only 24 hours. Everybody around you is working, right? They're all like waiters, and they're all like hotel employees that want to enhance your experience of you being very important, and that's exactly what I mean, right? But once again, right, it's $10,000, it's $5,000 for 24 hours in a hotel room that probably consists of things like upper floors, jacuzzi, showers, gold-plated sinks and beds, and the best like stuff out there, and you get like eat the finest food in that hotel. You meet people that make you feel very important, that you're that you're spending so much money. On the other hand, obviously spending $5,000 on other cheaper things may add up like a better experience overall, but having that, for example, $10,000 hotel room 24-hour experience may be a sort of a life event, right? That yes, I spent $10,000 on a night in a hotel room, and I've gained such an amazing feel about it. Just like spending $10,000 on a luxurious hotel room, like that President Platinum room out there, could be a thing that would make you feel or me feel excited all my life. I would be able to kind of look somebody in the eye and say, oh, you spent $9 on that? Oh, wait a minute, I spent $10,000 for 24 hours just to be inside of a hotel room that cost that much, and it was so awesome. I'll never forget about it. So there are these kind of things, you know, that you can kind of end up not experiencing if you don't have the money to throw away, because this is certainly throwing money away, but it's like throwing the money away and then kind of being excited about it, and so on and so forth. You know, if you won't have those $3,000 to rent a Ferrari that costs like $15 million for 4 hours or 24 hours, then you'll never sit in that car. Never, ever, ever. You'll just die without being ever in an expensive car, and that's it. However, you will certainly leave an inheritance to, let's say, your children or your family members, but you'll die without experiencing that, because you never had that heavy amount of money to throw away and experience something you'll just never forget. Besides, there's probably always a time in your life when you know you're going to die because you're too old or too sick, and probably in those last years or months you think through your past and think about what you experienced, what you achieved. You'll certainly won't care too much about money than if you're going to die. However, you'll probably be too sick, too tired, too weak to actually travel, buy, and experience things as much as you would do when you were young, strong, and healthy. And then you would just think and maybe even blame yourself that you have $200,000 worth of inheritance. However, all your life you never really experienced anything super awesome that you would be excited about, morally lifted in your last years or months of life, because this is certainly going to come for quite a few people, because not everybody dies suddenly in accident or gets killed by somebody or something. So money obviously buys not only things but experience too, obviously. Now my trend here isn't going anywhere really. I'm still shorting it, but I'm not getting that that few $100 down I need in order to pick a better trade. However, my overall 2 bitcoins here are making me a little bit of cash here. Let's take a look at the headlines for BTC USD. So this is the chart we're currently looking at. Will regulation weigh on cryptocurrency? So that's what pretty much they say about now, is that it's regulation that's making bitcoins go down. However, not only Bitcoin is going down, all the other ones are going down. Look at this, look at this. This is just proof. This is like proof for everybody out there that stock market, cryptocurrency market is manipulated, because in theory all of these cryptocurrencies have been shorted, right? But that is impossible, right? How can 99% of all cryptocurrencies known and considered to be a value are shorted right now, and then they are all bought? We already see, if you go a few videos or a video back, you'll see cryptocurrencies moving upwards, and obviously that's manipulation. So the way I look at it, the way it really works is that it works on supply demand. So pretty much put more money in, put more money down, the stock will change. But the way I look at it is that it's just a computer program and numbers, so it's not even real money that's being traded. It's just that this is also manipulated, that everybody is just simply trading a chart that has no value in it whatsoever. So there are probably no money, no bank accounts with all those trillions of dollars, and it's just all fake. And even if somebody found those bank accounts, they would just end up being completely fake money that is owned by nobody whatsoever. It's just owned by some kind of a force, organization, or group of organizations that control the world. And it wouldn't be surprising that that's exactly what it's like. And that force that is in control, they're concerned about the people or humanity in general, rather than specific groups of people, specific countries, specific individuals and whatnot. They just kind of, for example, see the world black and white, like we need to improve. If we want to improve, everybody cannot live well, so we're going to create a balance where we're going to improve the most. So if that means that the rest of them are going to suffer for a few to make the world better, we're gonna do just that. We're going to focus on like 90% of the world suffering in poverty, while the rest 10% increase the technology level, build, try things to make it so much better, so that the rest 90% of the world that's in poverty could live better the next generation. So new cars come in, new power plants, new things, new buildings, new styles of buildings that are much better, and then just it's still considered to be a poverty for the 90%, but that poverty is very different than it was, for example, 100 years ago, right? Where people, for example, didn't have bats, right? And then everybody just kind of started to build buildings with bats in them, because that 10% that wasn't living in poverty found out how to build bats, how to build sewer systems, how to make it all connect, so that 5 million or 100 million people would live in a city, and everybody living in that city would have bats with running water, and all that water would just be consistently moved in and out of the city, instead of everybody doing their own thing, and some of them living really badly, some of them living better, instead of just kind of making 90% of the world suffer for a period of time, like a generation, so that the next generation would live by an example that the 10% that wasn't in poverty found out how to live in. And it could be that that force out there that's in control of the world is kind of working with this kind of a logic of we as humans have to progress, rather than as countries or a race or a group of individuals. We all have to interconnect and make it so that the future generations would be living, the future generations that would be considered in poverty would be living as well as the rich or middle class lives right now in 2018, right? So how does that work? For example, maybe later in, let's say, 2085, the rich would be only traveling with like spaceships, and it would take them like a couple of hours or less, or maybe 30 minutes to just go in between the continents, while the people that are poor would still have to fly 24 hours. So these are the kind of things I'm talking about. Nowadays, for example, people live in very stylish, very kind of technologically advanced flats and houses, while in 2008